All right, and we're live. So, hello to anyone who is watching the stream. Warm welcome to you. Hope you're staying safe and hope you're staying well. Given the current climate, I feel like I at least have to acknowledge what's going on in the world. And don't want to dwell on that too much, but we're going to get right into what we're doing today. So, I wanted to give everyone in the community, obviously, huge thanks. We're aiming to become community supported as a software project, and that's been going actually reasonably well. So a huge thanks to everyone who signed up to support us. And I thought I'd kick this whole thing off with not just thanks, but also just showing you where we've got to. So I am going to, and excuse me if this is a bit of a janky stream, but as a matter of fact, I am not the world's most expert streamer. You're going to find that out today. It's going to be fun. So what I want to do is just bring up our... Let me just go to... Okay, so here's the development fund. Just want to give you guys a quick update on what's happening. So if we scroll down to the totals, you can see we're getting very close. And this total is about just keeping all the websites online, keeping our servers running, admin, business costs, that sort of stuff. So we wanted to put a total out there that if we reached it, then the project would just be sustainable and continue off into the never, forever, hopefully. What we're going to do, because we're getting close now, is we're going to actually start doing a different thing, which is why we've been talking about the development fund. So the development fund is basically now about getting enough funds to pay people to be hopefully at least part-time, if not full-time developers on the project to really give the community a great render farm software tool. And the ultimate aim would be to become similar to open source projects like Blender, which are completely open and free, open source, and supported by the community and not owned by any one company. Obviously, we're a company, so there might be a bit of transition in the future if we do end up going down that road. At the moment, we're at a huge crossroads, and I'm just going to be transparent about that. We started out thinking we'd make a product, actually the same as Blender. Blender started out as a product, and now we're obviously getting funding from the community supporting our project, which is similar to Blender. So we're going to make some decisions, hopefully not too distant future. But first, thank you guys so much. I mean, this total is just been so encouraging to us being able to continue developing and not have to worry about keeping the project afloat ourselves. So big thumbs up. Now, one of the things I did want to share just real quick, I'll get to questions in live chat a little bit later. But if you do sign up, pay attention to the page you land on. You should land on this page after you sign up. And I know, my fault probably here. Maybe I put too much text on this page, but it's really important that if you have signed up, that you realize it usually takes us about 12 to 24 hours to process unlocking all of the perks that you get. And usually we send an email to your PayPal email because sometimes that's the only one we have. It's not always easy to link the email you use in PayPal with the email you use for Crowdrender if you've used a different one. And so a lot of the times when we've had complaints about people saying, hey, I can't access the latest builds, it's usually because they've used a different PayPal email to their Crowdrender email, and we send you an email to your PayPal one normally saying, hey, thank you so much for supporting this project. And if we haven't been able to give you access, we usually tell you that and say, can you send us an email from your Crowdrender email so we know it's you and we can actually unlock the builds. That just really helps. We've built a website and we're trying to improve it all the time. When we added payment and all this other stuff on top, we really didn't think we'd be doing this. So we're actually trying to build a new website, which is going to make this all automated, which would be better because you get access straight away. Right now, it takes us time because we have to manually match your email to the one in Crowdrender if we can. If we can't, we send you an email and then we've sorted it out afterwards. So please be patient. And we've had a few people just ask us why they haven't had access. So that's why. It's not that you don't get it, it's just that it takes us a bit of time. Cool. So I'm just going to briefly flick back over to the other computer because now I want to get stuck into tips and tricks. Now, before I do that, spoiler alert. Well, it's not really a spoiler alert. It's more of just putting you guys on notice. This stuff that we do, It's part of exclusive content we give to people who are subscribed and supported. They're going to get this first. So all of you guys who are supporting us, again, thank you. Can't thank you enough. I'll probably do a few more thanks through the video. You get this first. So you guys will be invited to the live stream when it happens. You guys will get recordings. People who are supporting us will get recordings, and then we'll release the recordings of the live stream to the general community after a certain period of time has gone by. So if you subscribe, you get to join in on the live stream, ask us questions, and then you also get access to stuff like the recordings first. And we will do some completely subscriber-only content as well. So when you see in the $10 tier subscriber-only content, this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Oh, it's $10 and above. So if you're in the 20 and the 50, you get the same thing as the $10 one. So hopefully all that makes sense. Eventually, the stuff that we do record does get out to the general community. It just means you've got to wait for it. On that note, before I get stuck into the tips and tricks part, I mentioned earlier in the video about how we want to become community funded. The eventual aim is that as we go into this new phase of a development fund, we're going to have some new goals to hit, and as we hit each goal, we've decided that what we'll do is we'll release one of the currently unavailable builds out to the community. So as we get more and more funding, we're going to release more and more of the more modern versions of the software, some of which have some new features in, some of which have just stability improvements. Okay, so hopefully I'm going to have a quick look at the chat system. No one has said anything, and oh dear, the stream is poor. I wonder why that is. It shouldn't be poor. I've got like 4.9 kilobits per second. Okay guys, slight hitch here with the stream, so I'm just going to try and figure out why. I'm going to refresh my browser. Like I said, this stream is going to be pretty rough, purely because I am not the world's most experienced YouTube streamer. So if you guys see any glitches or problems, please put that in the comments below at what time you saw this problem crop up, and I'll try and figure out what's going on. So apparently YouTube's telling me there's not enough data, which is really annoying because apparently I am streaming like a boss from OBS, so that's very frustrating. Okay, I'm just going to try stopping and starting the stream. That kind of sucks. Why? Viewers will experience buffering. Well, that's a bit of a shame. Okay, I'm going to stop and start streaming, see if that helps. So, can I view the stream output? No, it's grayed out, so... Okay, and we're back. I had to joggle the stream. For some weird reason, it didn't like it, so... Oh, excuse me. And apologies if my voice sounds terrible as well. I've had a little bit of a cold. Hopefully nothing to worry about, but it just made me really congested. Okay, so now our stream is back up and in good shape. I want to really quickly just go over what we're going to do in the tips and tricks. So... one of the things we get asked the most when it comes to getting things to work in Crowdrender, it comes up a lot in the forums, is people who have got externally linked assets. So that might be a texture, that might be a model. So people sometimes opt for this way of setting up their project where they've got maybe a scene which they want to put certain props in, like a chair or a desk. So I'll show you an example of one, and you can get this file off blender.org. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. You guys will probably recognize it instantly when I open it. So this is the classroom demo file, and it's an interesting project because the way it's set up is, if I go and look at my hard drive, you can see you've got the main file here. So this is the file we've got open in Blender right now. And then you've got all the textures in one folder and all the assets in another. And this causes people no end of grief when they're trying to set up a render farm with Crowdrender, because Crowdrender, if I go back to that view, it only distributes the main blend file. Excuse me. So when you set up a project with Crowdrender and you synchronize it, it's only sending this. It's not sending the textures and the assets. And of course, that causes no end of grief. So how do you get around this? Now, the solution I'm going to go through today works really well, but it works really only with Windows systems. Sorry, I have to scratch my nose again. Sorry, it's really tickly for some reason. Apologies about that. Probably don't want to see me picking my nose. So I'm going to try and also source a solution that works for Linux, but at the moment it really is going to be the case that Unix systems and Windows systems are not a good idea to mix them. And my stream's gone again, far out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop. Okay, I'm going to wait. There we go. All right, we're back again. Apologies, guys. I'm really going to have to figure out what's going wrong with OBS, but its stream rate drops. And it's nothing to do with my internet, it's to do with the fact I'm streaming from a Macintosh. Yeah, don't hate me for that, please. Nope. What can you do? It's the computer I decided to buy, and now I'm thinking, well, maybe I should have just bought a Windows laptop or something. Anyway, not important. So going back to the tips and tricks part that we're doing, so I basically want to take you guys through now how we set up a Windows-based render farm. In another video, we might look at doing a Unix/Linux one. Unix also covers Mac as well, because Mac uses a form of Linux. Unix. Okay, so setup-wise, I have two computers under my desk here, so I've got two PCs. One of them, the one which I'm currently screencasting from, you can see the mouse whizzing around on. So this one has obviously the project on it, as you can see here. So it's got all the textures and it's got all the model files in here. So we can look at, in here you've got chairs. So we've got all of the blend files which have all of the props like desks, the chairs, lamps, so on, and etc. in. So the issue is when we actually connect to the other PC to use it for rendering using Crowdrender, that PC has no access to any of those files I just showed you, which is a big problem because it means at render time, well, I'll just show you. We'll do a quick test and you can see straight away what the symptoms are. And if you get these symptoms, then you know you've got files that didn't get transferred. Okay, so I've got Crowdrender set up. There are other tutorials in the YouTube videos on our website or on our YouTube channel you can look at if you want a tutorial of how to set stuff up. But basically, I'm just going to jump straight in because I want this to be quick and snappy. I've got this other PC set up and I'm just going to connect to it. This is pretty much what you would do as well. You open the project, you connect, and then it's going to transfer just the blend file. So you're going to see that happen in a sec. So if you look down here, you can see it's uploading. And then I'm just going to render it. I am going to turn the number of samples down, so it's not going to look as great, but I want this to be quick. You know, we want to do some quick testing and debugging rather than just sit here watching computers crunch numbers. So I'm going to turn the resolution down. And I'm also going to turn sampling down. So I'm going to use 30 samples, not 300. So it's not going to look great, but the idea is basically just to debug. So you guys might already do this anyway when you're debugging a scene before you actually commit it to a render farm. Okay, so we'll render that. Incidentally, during a test today, my other PC, which I'm using as just a render server, fell asleep and it looked like it wasn't online, but it woke up again straight away after I hit the spacebar and came back online, which was nice. So if you have a cloud account, you can actually see which of your computers are online without having to connect to them, and that can be handy. So it was grayed out like one of these other machines, and I hit the spacebar and it woke back up and it became bold again in its typeface, and I could see that it was still online. Okay, so the left-hand side, that is the part rendered by this computer where I'm moving the mouse around. The other PC, which is acting as the render node, well, there you go. It doesn't look particularly pretty, does it? Unless you like neon pink interiors, in which case it may be rather fetching for you. So obviously we need to fix this. What we're seeing here is Blender's default color when a texture is missing in a shader. So we're going to have to try and figure out, well, how do I fix that? And I'm not going to do all of them because there are a lot of textures in this scene. I'm just going to show you the general method. And first of all, I'm going to go through how you actually set up the sharing, and then we're going to jump back into how do you relink everything, because obviously you've got to share everything first before you relink everything. And by relinking, I mean telling Blender, instead of going to the hard drive on this machine where I'm moving the mouse around, to actually use the shared location, which is available to all the computers on your local network. All right, so how do you set up a folder on Windows to share? It's actually fairly simple. I'm going to show you one way of doing it that just works really well. I'm going to point out that it may not be the most secure way though, but if you're on a local network and your router has a firewall in it, it's not too risky. But you are basically turning off password sharing because you kind of have to. Otherwise, you have to have each computer log in when it wants to access files that are not on its own hard drive but on the other computer. So this computer shares the files, and I'm going to set it up so that the other computer I'm using doesn't need to enter a password, because that's kind of a pain if the computer has to enter a password, because obviously we're working in Blender and Blender doesn't have a way of entering a password and username to get access to files on other systems. So whatever you give Blender, it's just usually a file path and it's just got to work. Okay, so we want to share this folder, Blender Projects, so I'm going to right click it. I'm going to go to Properties, and I've already actually shared this, but you just hit the share button. You add a user type, so I add everyone so that everyone has access. And then you can see here I've given everyone read access, and you hit share. And when you do that, you should see that it actually tells you what the network path is. So you've got the network path here now. And the idea is this path, if you replace all of the references in your blend file with that path, then the other PC I have should be able to find all of the stuff that it needs and render it. Because otherwise it's going to use the path which is in Blender by default, which actually refers to this computer's hard drive, which no other computer but this one can access. So sorry if I'm going a bit fast, but hang in there, guys. It's going to make sense when I actually do it. All right, now the other thing we're going to have to do is, if you haven't set up file sharing already on your computer, you will have to do that. So you're going to have to go to your settings, you're going to have to go to network and internet, and you choose the connection that you're actually using. So I'm using Ethernet. You may decide to use Wi-Fi or some other connection, but I'm using the internet one. I'm going to choose this one, and I'm going to change my advanced sharing options. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at whatever the current profile is, because that's obviously what we're currently using. And we want to turn on network discovery, turn on automatic setup of network connected devices, and turn on file and printer sharing, obviously. It's also a good idea to do that on all the other computers that will be trying to access the file. Also, you want to turn off password protected sharing, because otherwise the other PC that I have down here would have to actually somehow log in. Now you can try doing that and map a network drive, but it's actually a lot simpler and a lot quicker just to turn it off. Now this is the security thing that I was talking about. It obviously means that anyone who can get access to your network, so say you're using Wi-Fi, if someone connects wirelessly to your network, then they'll be able to get files off this computer, because it's not password protected. So that's the security flaw. So hopefully your Wi-Fi network is well secured. All right, so once you've set that up, pretty much the next thing we're going to have to do is go into Blender and actually relink everything. And I'm not going to relink everything, but we're going to show you what to do with just a few bits of the scene. So remember, when we rendered just a moment ago, the render PC, which is currently online, which is the other PC which I used to render, turned up all of this pink stuff here because it's missing some textures. So I'm going to try and replace one of them and show you how that's done, and then hopefully you get the idea and you can just repeat it. Now I am going to say that it's actually a hell of a lot easier if you just set up your projects so that they actually just are already using the shared network folder from the very beginning. Because otherwise you have to go through this tedious process of relinking everything. So let's do that now. We'll go through the said tedious process of relinking everything. So if I select this wall here, I'm going to go to the shader editor because I want to find, so if I go to general, I'm going to go to shading. Okay, it's going to think about it. I'm going to turn off, and sorry, my computer might chug for a little bit here, so apologies if this takes a while. I just have to turn off the rendered preview. My computer doesn't have a GPU, so it's currently going to struggle a little bit if any of this is trying to render. But the general idea is what we're going to do is we're going to find where we've actually referenced that texture, because that texture is currently being referenced to the hard drive of this computer. Ah, there you go. Ha, there's my computer chugging. Ah, spinny thing. Not fun. So I'm trying to turn the rendered preview off so it won't chug quite so bad. Once it does though, it's usually not too bad. You can see it doing stuff here. It takes a while. Once we're through that though, we're basically going to go and find the texture and we're going to relink it. So we're going to tell Blender, hey, don't look on this machine's hard drive. Actually use the share path. So when I mean the share path, I mean this thing. So Blender projects, properties, sharing. So we're going to put this path in, and then obviously the full path to the file that it needs, rather than the current one, which would be something like C drive users, etc., etc. Okay, so Blender render. Yep, it's still chugging through it. Oh, that's so annoying. It does eventually get through this, but it's got to compile or process something. I'm not really sure what it was doing. It was doing this earlier today, and it was a bit of a pain, but it does get through it. Again, not great streaming content, but I will find a way around this one day so that people don't have to be subjected to me just having to babble on as filler until Blender catches up. Okay, I think it's caught up. No, it's still got a little bit left to go. Okay. I think what it's doing is it's probably just loading all of the HDRIs and everything in so that it can do material previews or rendered viewport or something. So potentially I could turn those off one day. Oh, I think it's, yes! Oh, finally. Okay, so we're in the shading editor. I've got that back wall selected, which has a wooden plank texture, I believe. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to find the texture node. I'm going to open. So I'm going to pretend like I'm opening again. I'm going to edit this path so that instead of using the path to the C drive, it uses render 3 PC / users. Okay, there we go. So I've just changed the path so that it references the same file, so you can see at the end of it. There's the, oh no, it hasn't rendered the same. Oh great, wooden planks. Okay, there we go. Open image. Okay, so now at this point I've relinked just this texture along the back wall. So what this means now is if I upload the blend file again, that path should now actually be able to reach this texture from the other PC. So let's give that a test, and yours truly is crossing his fingers that this actually works. It's always great stuffing up in front of hundreds of people on a live stream, but what the heck. So the first thing I've got to do is do this resync. Resync sends the whole blend file again, because right now we've changed something in the blend file, but that's not actually automatically changed on the other computer. So by doing the resync, there you go, it's uploading. Okay, synced, all right. Fingers crossed. So the room's pretty much going to still look empty and have a lot of pink everywhere, but if I've done this properly, then what we should see is that strip of wooden planks is now going to appear in the render from the other machine. And of course, if I was going to do this scene properly, I'd go through each material that has a texture and relink all of them doing exactly that. So just changing the path for each one. Luckily, you only have to change each path once, and then when you resync, it resyncs to all of your nodes. So if you had like 20 nodes, you only have to do each shader or material once, thankfully. The other benefit to doing this is once you've done it, oh, hooray! Phew! Okay, so there you have it. And the other thing I was saying is, once you've linked your assets in this way, you can actually go and change that texture file now. And every time you want to render, the change will show up on the next time you render it. Because at render time, each machine basically gets the file again off of, well, in my case, this computer. So this computer is what I call the host. It's where all the entire project is stored. There is a downside to that, and the downside is if your network isn't fast, then all the computers kind of have to wait until they've got everything they need to start rendering. So you might find that the render is a little bit slower. Now, obviously, I'm not actually sure if Blender is. I hope it's smart enough to know that once it's got the file once, it doesn't need it for every frame. I think that is actually reliable, but I haven't tested it, so I'm going to test that. I'll let you guys know. So we've done a texture. But we've got nothing in the actual room, which is a little bit annoying. So I'm going to try and show you now how to do actual models. So we need to get like all of the furniture back in here. And that's a little bit trickier because I was looking around before I started the stream for a nice, button or something I could press in Blender which would do this, but I couldn't find one. So if you know about one, please leave it in the comments below. I would be really grateful to know about any such device. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select something. Actually, I don't need to select something. This next step to get models to relink is very techy because you have to know scripting. So if you don't like scripting, you might want to make sure the next time you do a project that you start using shared directories from the outset, because otherwise you have to go through this painful process of relinking, and I don't think anyone who doesn't like scripting is going to want to do that. So I'm going to set this up as a Python scripting view, and all of the models, so all the chairs, the desks, all that stuff are in libraries. And you can see these are all the libraries here. And I'll prove it to you by showing you the file path to that library. So that's where all the lamps are. And maybe if I go through each one, actually I'll do a little bit of scripting just to show you how to print out each of the libraries' name and file path so we can tell what they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to say for every library in the libraries collection, I just want you to print out to me what its file path is. Sorry. A little bit of snot. No one likes snot. It's snot nice. Haha. Okay, so those are all the libraries. Now, a library is basically Blender's term for one of the folders which you've pulled some data from. So if you remember, if we go back to where we've got the project, you'll notice that these actually should line up. So assets, you can see here they've got a list of assets, and then we've got a list of directories. Well, that's pretty much what we're looking at here. We've got books, chairs, coat stand, etc. So what we have to do is we basically have to change the file path for each of these libraries to the file path that we changed for the texture. So if you remember, we've got this share path now. So if I go back up to here, so this is the folder that's shared. You can see that under the sharing tab, it's got this name, render 3 PC uses Blender tester. So we have to change each of the paths here to match this. So what this double / means in Blender is same folder as the main blend file. It's called relative paths. And there's a setting for it in Blender as well. If you want to change your path to relative or absolute, you can actually do that through external data up here. Make all paths relative, make all paths absolute. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the paths for, I think, the desks, because I think that's all of what each of the chairs in the scene. If I go back to default, each of these I think is actually called a desk. The chair model is just this one chair in the corner. So let's do that. So I'm going to go back to scripting, and I am going to change. Well, first of all, I've got to find that library for desks. So if I do libraries, and this is a little bit tedious as well, .file path. There we go, desks. Wow, hit it first go. That's encouraging. Okay, so I'm going to have to obviously do a little bit of scripting here just to give a new file path for this library. It's not too hard. You just have to remember that on Windows it's a little bit strange. You have to escape your backslashes, which means each backslash you want to put in that path, you have to add another one. So it ends up looking a little bit strange, but as I will show shortly, it does actually work. So render 3 pre-C, users. So all we're doing is we're just changing this file path to use that share path. And then hopefully when we render again, hopefully when we resync and then render again, we'll have all of those desks back where they should be, which would be great. Blender tester, desktop, Blender Pro. Oh, I forgot to, hang on. Using control and left arrow, I can jump words like this. So I don't have to press the arrow key so many times. Little scripting tip there if you want to do some scripting, that can be helpful sometimes. Blender projects, classroom. And now the classroom matches the double slash up here. So this path now has got to this point here, meaning that all I have to do now is add assets, desks, desktop blend, and I should be good to go. So let's do that. Assets or classroom, desks. Actually, no, sorry. Assets, desks, desktop. Oh, desks, sorry, desks with a plural dot blend. Okay, now I'm just going to check this. It's always a good idea to check this path because we can't really verify it's correct other than just uploading the file again and rendering. If your main file was a few gigs, that would be quite a long time to find out that this actually isn't working. So we've got render 3 PC, which is obviously the computer on the network, users, the user that we want to access the folder from, which is Blender tester, then the desktop, Blender projects, classroom, assets, which is spelled correctly. Yes, it is. Desks, desktop blend. Okay, so, and we can just check that that's actually correct. Okay, all the double slashes are in the right place. All right, so all we have to do now is re-upload the blend file to the other PC again, which we can easily do just using the resync button. So we'll just press that. There it goes. And now we'll render, and I'm going to cross my fingers again and hope that it all works. Again, the cool thing about doing this is once you've got all of your scenes set up like this, and you've got linked assets, not appended, linked. Appending just adds it, but if you change the model it was linked from or appended from, that doesn't actually propagate to your scene where you've pulled everything into. If you use linked, then if you change the model will get updated when you open the blend file. And also it means if you wanted to change the desks or the chairs in any way and then re-render it, all you'd have to do is change the model file on the host computer, meaning this one, and when the other computer, the other PC rendered, it would just pull it across. Oh yes! Woo! Sorry, I love celebrating this because it's so nerve-wracking. For some weird reason. I don't know why I'm affected by it. But there you have it. So again, I would highly recommend if you're going to use external textures, and a lot of times you don't know that textures are actually external because you just say open this texture file and use it, but it's not actually inside your blend file at all, it's sitting outside. The other technique you can use if you want to use external files, external textures, models, is you can use something called pack into blend, and we've got another tutorial in our list of videos on YouTube about how to deal with, actually we use this scene again, but we use packing rather than using shared folders. Packing is really good if you've got different OS types. Like if you've got a Windows machine, like a workstation where you work, and then you've got lots of maybe Linux or Unix or even maybe Mac machines that you want to render on. Packing is pretty much the only way to do that because of stuff I won't go into right now because it's very technical. It has to do with UNC paths. So a UNC path is this thing. Sorry, no, not that. This thing. This is a UNC path. You can look it up on Wikipedia. There's nothing really all that hard to it. It's just a format. So the format is, this is the computer on the network, and then this is pretty much the path on the computer which you can actually share stuff from. The thing with Linux and Unix is they don't use UNC paths in the same way, which means when Blender comes to that path on a Linux machine, so if Blender was to see, let's pretend this is a Unix machine, if Blender sees this path, it goes, and it can't do anything with it. So that would be reported as an asset it can't pull in. Unless they fix that, or I'm just talking nonsense. But for me, I couldn't get that to work before doing the stream. So I'm hoping either they will fix that or I was wrong. And if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. But yeah, check out that video for... Oh gosh, no, the stream is gone. We're doing so well. Okay, I just want you to keep streaming if possible. That would be nice. Sorry guys. Yeah, having a little bit of streaming issues, but we'll get there. I'll figure this out eventually. So as I was saying, check out the list of videos for the other version of doing this, which is packing, which is really helpful if you've got Unix, Linux, Mac, Windows machines mixed throughout your network. Otherwise, this method is really flexible. I'd say this is probably one of the best methods, even though you do have a slight performance penalty for pulling stuff across the network. In the next tips and tricks, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it using things like Mantaflow. So you bake a cache of maybe a fluid or a fire or smoke simulation. That cache is stuck on the host machine, so again that'd be stuck on this PC here, and the other computer that I've got wouldn't be able to actually access the cache and render the frames properly. So what we want to do is do a little experiment and then share that with you on the next one, the next stream, that will show you how you can actually set up a render farm using this same technique, but to access the cache. Obviously, the tech savvy amongst you, if you've seen this, will probably know exactly how to do it, but I'm going to do that one just for everyone who missed the stream. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure, this is the usual plug at the end of every YouTube video, I'm sure we say, please like, subscribe, share, everything. Give us everything. Why not? That really helps. Like I said, we want to be a community-funded project, and we want to keep working on this because we love it. And we like it to one day be the thing that we get up every day and be able to do. All right, guys, that's enough from me. Hope you've enjoyed this. Please, again, give us a like if you like the stream. If you didn't like it for any reason, please tell us in the comments, other than all of the janky tech issues that I had, which I will try and sort out for the next one. But until then, guys, loved having you guys with us on the stream, and we'll see you later. Bye.